So I would welcome you all here. You've already been attending classes, I think yesterday and today with Maharaj. But, my wife and I, Vishakasaki Devi, also disciple of Radhanath Maharaj, we arrived here in the evening yesterday. We were there in Chaupati yesterday and the day before. Maharaj gave class yesterday, very wonderful class. And he let us speak a little bit. And the day before we attended a program in Juhu, but we finally made it here. And I'm actually here because I saw Maharaj in Vrindavan during Kartik. And he said he was doing Prabhupada Charya series, which is a 10-day, he said, 10-day program. I've never seen it myself. Of course, I generally, when I give a class, I talk about Srila Prabhupada. I don't know anything about him, but whatever I do know, I only know something about him. I don't know much of anything else. Prabhupada once said, it was 1975. And it was Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja. So we all know, well, we know that Srila Prabhupada was born in Calcutta in what year? We'll start with the 1896. September, maybe I think it was September 4th, September 1st, 1896. So the devotees sent a letter to Srila Prabhupada saying they made up a schedule for Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja, his appearance day, which of course goes along with the lunar calendar, so it will change every year. And this is the day Vedic, we follow the lunar calendar generally. So, now any of you are mathematicians, so 1975, so Vyas Puja, how many years would it be for Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja?
79.
That's what the devotee said. And Prabhupada said, and not to disgrace, we all think like that. Prabhupada said, no, it's not my 79th Vyas Puja. He said, it's the 80th. And you should know this as a nice growing up Indian culture. When you're born, what is it? It's your first birthday. You're born, you're already considered 1 year old. Is that right, Prabhu? See, he knows, so older. They know proper culture. You've been in the womb for a year. That's what they consider. So birth starts at conception. This, of course, is one of the biggest factors we deal with in society, is the child in the womb. It's a child. We know we go through so many things, talk about abortion, that's okay. But then it's known in the USA, you kill a pregnant woman, you're responsible for 2 murders. So they play both sides of the coin. They understand it's a child, but then abortion is okay. That's an exception. But otherwise, if you kill someone, kill a pregnant woman, you're charged with 2 murders. So anyway, it's getting a little sidetracked, but Prabhupada said, no, it's my 80th. He said, when you're born, you're already 1 year old. And he called his disciples, he said, you're all fools. He said, you're all fools. He said, you don't even understand. You're saying it's my 79th and my 80th. And then after that he said, better you be a fool. He said, disciples should always be a fool before the spiritual master. You always present yourself as a fool before your spiritual master. So Maharaj asked me to come because I had personal association with Prabhupada as his servant for 2.5 years. So I got to be a fool personally before Srila Prabhupada for 2.5 years. He would chastise me. He was actually very, very kind. I think I even mentioned that to you once. When you have a personal servant, you can't chastise him for everything he does. Otherwise, you're just going to... So Prabhupada was like that. He would pick the occasions when he would chastise me. Again, I know this series is Prabhupada Acharya. Ultimately, it's all about Srila Prabhupada. Everyone here, and whatever that audience may be, I say the same thing whether it's 20 devotees, 200 devotees, or 2,000 devotees. We're all here because of one person, Srila Prabhupada. That's why he's called Founder Acharya, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Everyone that comes because of Srila Prabhupada. And everyone that comes actually comes because of Srila Prabhupada's books. This is not a book marathon class in any way, but ultimately, if you're here because of Srila Prabhupada's books. Even if you just met some devotee, well, that devotee, he came because of Srila Prabhupada's books. And if that devotee didn't come, somewhere along the line, it was because of what Srila Prabhupada has written in his books, that all of us are here. Therefore, his books, most important. And that's why all the time, book distribution, Srila Prabhupada stressed it, but especially they take this 1 month of the year to really give the people the opportunity to receive one of Srila Prabhupada's books. But I thought, since this is going to be going across for some days, I think up until the 10th, I should at least start at the beginning, and how I came to Srila Prabhupada, again because of his books, but that was also indirect. I was 19 years old. It was 1971. I'm from Philadelphia. I was raised, my father died, I was 3 years old. I had an Italian Catholic mother and 2 older sisters. So that's the household I was raised in. And it doesn't matter so much, but I was actually raised in a neighborhood. The closest church and school was, of course, Catholic school. And everyone was Irish. And I was the oddball because I had Italian parents. So even in that atmosphere, it was very different for me. But being raised a Catholic, Prabhupada described they're Vaishnavas. He said Christians are Vaishnavas. So that's making a very nice statement. Prabhupada sometimes he would make very liberal statements. So why would Christians be considered Vaishnavas? Anyone have any idea? It's actually very simple. Because they accept God as a person. That's the difference between Vaishnava and Mayavad. We understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a person. So therefore he said Christians are also Vaishnavas. And I was raised that way in the Catholic Church with the nuns at school. We had what we called the catechism. It was all the simple question and answers about what Christianity, Catholicism was about. And one of the first things we learned was we were made in the image and likeness of God. Like we say, this body, we're made that's what we say as Vaishnavas. So that was the very first principle. I didn't understand, but was taught just as even a small boy. And by the time I was in I believe it was 2nd grade, the sister, the nun, she asked me if I wanted to be an altar boy. So I became an altar boy, which meant on Sundays you were in the church and you rang bells. So I said I was a pujari very young, not proper Vaishnava, but I was ringing bells in the church as a very young boy. Of course, by the time you get into high school, all these things, they went away, stopped going to church. And I got to see as I was growing up in the Catholic Church, there were certain things that you were supposed to do back in the 50s and 60s. One of them was you went to confession. You went to confession every week. And you would try to tell the priest all the things you could think of, what were your sins. And then he would give you your atonement, say a few Hail Marys, say an Our Father. So this is how I was raised like this. Then again in high school, stopped going to church, stopped that. And even the church changed so much. When I first went there and as an altar boy, I had to learn all the prayers in Latin. Everything in Latin we learned because that was the official language. And we fasted from every Friday. What did we do? No meat. No meat on Fridays. Why would that be there? Because eating meat is wrong. And they knew that. The philosophy had disappeared, but there were rules and regulations. And without the philosophy, rules and regulations, they become extinct. What's the purpose? Not eating meat. This is what happened. What's the use of going to church? What's the use of not eating meat? What's the use of not doing this? I remember my mother, we had Lent, led up to Easter Sunday, 40 days. That's when Jesus was in the desert fasting. And so you had to pick an austerity. We know from Srila Prabhupada, what's the first thing Lord Brahma heard? Tapas, austerity. Have to follow austerity. If you want to make progress in spiritual life, you have to practice austerities. This was the first thing in the creation of the universe. Tapasya. So tapasya was there, even in this Christian religion, but gradually all fell apart because there was no philosophy. And even the understanding of God as a person. I remember looking into this book, this little book, Catechism. It literally had a picture of God, just like this, sitting in a chair. He looked like Abraham Lincoln, in Washington, D.C., but his face was blank. It was literally like just a big zero there. There were no eyes, no nose, no mouth, because they didn't know, who is this God? So somehow or other, 19 years old, my friend and I, we were together going to college, and we both became more than inquisitive. We were searching. We were frustrated with life, as so many were. This was 1971. At that time in the West, as Prabhupada said, hippies. We know he always said he turned hippies into happies. That was Prabhupada's program. There were all these frustrated, not just call them hippies, they were intelligent people, college-educated people. We know Hayagriva, Prabhupada always said college professor. Prabhupada liked to brag about his students, especially when he came to India. He would say this, Hayagriva, he was English professor in the university. Hayagriva sometimes would say, I was just an English teacher. But Prabhupada said professor of English in the university, because he wanted to show everyone these people are coming to Krishna consciousness because they see there's nothing in the material world. He would point another one. His father is a millionaire, he would say, and he's given up everything to become devotee. And then he would say, would you go back to your family for $1 million? No, Prabhupada, never. Prabhupada said, just see. So he was showing the others. He knew at that time, from 1970 when he first went back preaching in India, they're trying so hard to be like the Americans. And the Americans, they're trying to be like the Indians from long time ago, from Vedic culture. which they'd taken away from them, which they had given up over so many generations. So we were there in school, and we were both struggling. Why are we doing this? Why are we going to school? My friend was very philosophical. He was reading different books. Trying to think of the name of one of them. It was something, the master something, it was about the master. And me, I wasn't a book reader, but I did want to find God. It's what I wanted more than anything. But I didn't want to understand them intellectually. I wanted to feel them. If you're there, you have to do something. Because again, in Christianity, everything offshoot of Vedic culture, all religions, we learned the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Later, as a teenager, they changed it from ghost to spirit, because I guess ghost sounded too, weird, a ghost. So the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, which the Father is Krishna, Son, all Son, Guru, Son, and the Holy Spirit, simple, Paramatma in the heart. So it was there, but no understanding of what it meant. No one, you could ask, and as some would do, they would ask their priest, they would ask the nun questions about life after death. They would ask who is, and they had no answers. So it was very frustrating. I went to different programs in the U.S. We had down in, especially in the southern part of the United States, they had Pentecostals, born-again Christians. These were like groups who were very much into feeling. And that's what I literally went to this born-again Christian, because they would sing and dance, just like we see the devotees singing and dancing. Their singing and dancing was a little more dramatic, although not anymore. We're pretty dramatic as well in our singing and dancing, some. But they would sing and dance and sweat, and then they talked in tongues. That was supposedly the Holy Spirit talking through them. No one could understand. But I didn't feel anything. I wasn't meant to, but I wanted to feel something, but I didn't feel anything. So I prayed and pray every night. I'd go to bed and pray, whatever I knew. And on April 22nd, 1971 was Earth Day. And there was a program. I was from Philadelphia, so there was a big park in Philadelphia, Fairmount Park, right in the center of town. So we went to that park, my friend and I. There were rock bands, singing all the latest songs at that time, so many songs, so many rock songs. And we were sitting there enjoying, and there was this spot, was called Belmont Plateau in the park. And there was about a dozen crazy people there. And they all had yellow on. The men had yellow dhotis, yellow shirts, kurtas. The women had yellow saris, because there were no saris, there were no dhotis, there were no gift shops, there were no Indian stores. None of this existed. But by this time, everyone was wearing dhoti kurta, so they would go to the cloth shop and buy a big bolt of this polyester yellow cloth. If you'll see the Back to Godhead magazine sometime, you'll see that everyone, so that's what we saw. And they're singing and dancing. And we're up above a bit, and my friend's there, let's go see them. And I'm like, no. I said, I don't want to see them. He said, no, let's go talk to them. And I'm thinking, they look like they're from outer space, They kept saying, no, it's okay, let's go see them. So we went down, and they're all young, all like 18, 20, 22 years old. And any one of them has been living in the temple maybe from 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months. They're all brand new. But Krishna book was there. I found out later on. And we went up to this one boy, what's going on? And so he told us, and I asked, I want to find God. That was it. I was finished. He said, well, we have him. His name is Krishna. He's this blue boy. So he told me who God was. He told me his name, told me his mother's name, his father's name, where he lives, what he does, everything. And I was like a dried out sponge. I was just so eager. And everything he said, somehow or other, just went, it didn't go in one ear and out the other. Everything he said, I just accepted it immediately. And we continued to go to school every day. For the next 3 days after school, I had a little motorcycle, we'd go to the temple and we'd hear a Bhagavad Gita class. And I'm like looking at the person giving class, and I'm wanting to see like people levitate and things, because I didn't see it, but I'd stare and stare and stare. And after 3 days, Kirtanananda Swami came to the Philadelphia temple. So he was established New Vrindavan, So he would go to the different temples and see who was there. So he saw us right away. I had my hairs out like this. I had like a kinky kind of curly hair, and I had a beard. My friend, mustache and long hair. And so he spotted us right away, and he started talking to us. Why don't you come to New Vrindavan? We said, okay. So 3 days later, we left school, left home, left our parents, got on a train and traveled from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh and went to New Vrindavan. Went to the temple, first day there. That's what Srila Prabhupada had done. This is the potency, the pure devotee. Imagine, one day we're sitting in class, the next day we're sitting in the temple shaved up chanting 16 rounds. It wasn't a 2-year process. It was 1 day process. I remember the first day going home. Imagine my mother, brokenhearted. I was her only son. You can imagine. It's just like Indian family. Sons never leave their mothers, their Italian mothers. Isn't that right, Maharaj? We're bad if you do that. They call her mothers every day. If you don't cook nicely, they say, it's not like mama cooked for me. I want to eat what my mother cooked. There's a big, close relationship. And we just left it all. It was just the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Because he wanted to give Krishna consciousness to everyone. I can tell you, while I was with him, I could see he accepted any service from anyone. Didn't matter what your background was, didn't matter if you were chanting, didn't matter if you were following. It mattered, he emphasized it. But regardless of what we were doing, he accepted our service. And he could do that because he was pure devotee. He was meant to be that person. His desire to give Krishna to everyone was so strong that he was given that service. So it was that simple. And I say from the beginning, we were on the farm in New Vrindavan, middle of nowhere. Maharaj, this is we're old New Vrindavan inmates. It was the only temple, as far as I know, in the whole world. Prabhupada called them the inmates of New Vrindavan. Everywhere else, they were the devotees in the temple. But in New Vrindavan, we were called the inmates of New Vrindavan. You couldn't bloop if you wanted to from New Vrindavan. There was no way to get to the main highway. You would have to walk for 3 hours in the middle of the night to leave. So we were there, but we were very happy. I was 19 years old. It was the first time I saw a cow. I grew up in Philadelphia. I never saw a cow. I didn't know. I saw dogs, cats, some birds. That was about it. But I wasn't aware of animals. And now I was milking cows, somehow by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And as Radhanath Maharaj mentioned the other day, they had a little program for him on his Vyas Puja day, his lunar, on the 30th. And he was talking about in New Vrindavan. And he was telling the devotees how I became Prabhupada's servant, being in New Vrindavan. I was, from May to August, I was in the kitchen in New Vrindavan. And we had the first very big festival, Janmashtami festival. Everyone knew Prabhupada was coming, it was arranged. He had been there in 1970, so this was 1972, the end of August. Everyone knew Prabhupada was coming. They came from all over the US, his disciples, to hear from him, to hear from Srila Prabhupada. Hundreds came, as Radhanath Maharaj was saying. And Srutakirti, he was in the kitchen. I was the cook. I was the head cook, which meant I was the cook. There weren't any other cooks. But for the festival, different devotees came and they would help. And Radhanath Das Brahmachari at the time, he was living up at the top farm. That was called the Vrindavan farm. That was the most isolated farm. Bahulaban had at least a road, one-lane road that ran by. But then the Vrindavan farm was just a muddy path that went up for, I guess, a mile or more. 2 miles. So you were up there as he was. He was just up there. He said he was very happy being a brahmachari. He said he was very, very happy just being a brahmachari, doing his service. And he did all kinds of services. He was pujari, also milked cows up there in New Vrindavan. But he came down for the festival, as other devotees, even from different cities, they came to help prepare, because we had to cook for hundreds. And it was a farmhouse. There was no running water in the kitchen. There was no gas stove, no electric stove. We had wood. So it was something. So he said in Srutakirti he was making khichdi and breadsticks. Best breadsticks. He always talks about the breadsticks. Radhanath Maharaj, the best breadsticks. And he was making khichdi. Sometimes he tells very elaborate stories. One time was 20 years ago, 23 years ago, he had one of his first retreats. They went to Raval, Radharani's birthplace. And he saw me in Krishna Balaram Mandir, the Samadhi. We were chanting japa. And he said, we're having a retreat. He said, would you like to come and give the first class about Srila Prabhupada? I said, okay. So I went with 2,000. Even then, there were 2,000 devotees. Now, what was this last one? 12,000, I think, in Mayapur, right, for a week or so. 12,000. Then there were 2,000, but it was still very, very organized. Everyone was on buses. Everyone had their seat. And we went there in a car. And it was at that time I was talking to Yadabar, who's also here. We were in the back seat of the car. Maharaj was in the front seat. And I was telling Yadabar about being in New Vrindavan and how Prabhupada came. I didn't get to see him because I'm cooking in the kitchen. And I was very upset because I had his association previously in Los Angeles for several days. I got to go on the morning walk. So I became attached to his vapu, his form. But when he came to New Vrindavan, I had service to do. So I didn't get to see him. He's giving class up on the hill. They called it Govardhan Hill. Every day he would give Bhagavatam class up there. I didn't get to hear the class. So I was saying all these things to Yadabar. So then we get to Raval, and Radhanath Swami introduces me. And everything I said in the back seat, very quietly, and he's chanting japa in the front seat. Everything I said, he starts telling all the devotees. Srutakirti didn't get to see Prabhupada and cooking in the kitchen, and he's making khichdi, the best khichdi, he said. He said, and it was so tasty because he's over the khichdi and his sweat is going into the khichdi. This is Radhanath Maharaj. So he made it sound very, very exciting. I don't think it was that exciting. And I said the other day, and I said, yes, and you were cutting vegetables. He said, no, I wasn't. He says, I was washing pots. He says, and it would be really, really black because we were cooking on wood stoves. So the pots would become blackened. He said, and I had to wash those blackened pots because Prabhupada said the inside of the pot and the outside of the pot should be spotlessly clean and shiny. He said, so I had to scrub those pots. So that's what he was doing that time. So that way he introduced me, and then I talked for about an hour, and already he had his people very trained up. And I stopped and I said, and he looked and he said, do you want to hear more? Haribol, Haribol. Anyway, I spoke for 5.5 hours that day. It was the first day. And I only stopped because I said, I have a program to go to. Otherwise, he would have me keep on speaking about Srila Prabhupada. So this whole series about Srila Prabhupada, try to see the people who dedicated their lives to Srila Prabhupada. And I can say, seeing you here, wanting to sit here and hear about Srila Prabhupada and learn about Srila Prabhupada and his activities and understand how to follow Srila Prabhupada shows very much how sincere you are. Because everything that's going to be talked about, everything you see, everything that's grown, is all because of Srila Prabhupada. So the most important thing, and this is my opinion, is you become very attached to Srila Prabhupada. Because he saved us. He saved all of us. And the most important thing we can do is remain chaste. So many times I've had people ask me about Prabhupada's qualities, and which quality, which quality I appreciated the most. And it's not an easy question to answer because all of them are just, like we say, there's perfect, more perfect, most perfect. Everything, there's no perfect, more perfect. Everything was most perfect. And actually, all of Prabhupada's qualities, from my point of view, being with him, were relishable. I often would say his sense of humor. And in one sense, it is what I appreciated most. Like I said, I wasn't a philosophical book reader. But I appreciated Srila Prabhupada so much, and that's what, after 53 years, somehow or other still here, just attached to Srila Prabhupada and who he is and what he's given us. But his sense of humor, because again, I remember I joined in right then, end of April 71. And the first time, I received initiation, first initiation, 3 months later in New York City, Henry Street Temple, it was called Henry Street Temple, it's known as. 3 months to the day I received first initiation. I didn't get Prabhupada handed me my beads, gave me my name, but I didn't get to spend any time other than right there and then. But then we all traveled, myself and 4 others traveled from New Vrindavan to Los Angeles. And there we all received Brahmin initiation. So that was May 1972, 1 year after moving into the temple. That was, at that time, that was the timeline. You get initiation after a few months, and at 9 more months, you could become Brahmin. And you're following everything very nicely, and you were recommended. So then I went to Los Angeles. And at that time, I literally got to spend many days, every day going on the morning walk, and every day going in the garden in the afternoon. Srila Prabhupada was very regulated. He had a very wonderful schedule that, as time goes by, I see it more and more. We're talking this is Acharya series. I learned, as we all did then, we heard about, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And one of the things Bhaktivinoda Thakur noted was his schedule. He put down what his schedule was. And he spent so many hours a day in his government service, and so many hours doing translating, so many hours taking rest. Everything he put down there. And he had that schedule. But what I saw with Prabhupada, and he didn't speak about it very much, but he certainly did it. He was very regulated, even traveling around the world, 14 times around the world. He maintained a very strict schedule for himself. And I see that devotees, they're very regulated in what they do. So Prabhupada had a very regulated schedule, which we can, over the coming days, we can talk about his schedule as well. But part of that schedule, the afternoon was his bhajan. I say his bhajan time. After lunch, he took a little nap, because at night, just 2-3 hours. So then in the afternoon, another half hour or so. And then when he was up around 2 o'clock, that was his time to read, chant japa, do bhajans. He would sit, play harmonium, and just sing bhajans. And himself, he would read his books. So in Los Angeles, I got to be the person reading Krishna book to him each afternoon. We would go into the garden. It was just 4 or 5 of us, all young brahmacharis, and Kirtanananda Swami was there. He was the reason I was with Prabhupada, to become Prabhupada's servant in a few months. And I would read Prabhupada's Krishna book stories. And when you sat before Prabhupada, you could learn if you were observant, if you were attentive. You would learn very quickly, Prabhupada, how he did things. He had a certain way. And he never just talked, like just indiscriminately about nothing. Even for me to read Krishna book, he wouldn't stop and say, read Krishna book, okay, now you can read Krishna book, read this story. He would just look at you, and you knew, okay, now it's time to read. You didn't ask questions. He actually said that. It's not even, you never start a conversation with your guru. You don't try to initiate. If he wants to speak, he'll speak. And I learned this very quickly. Don't do anything unless he's giving you the permission to do it. And I would just sit there literally holding the Krishna book, waiting. One time, and you learn so much, so quickly from pure devotee. The things he would say, little things. One day sitting there, afternoon. Again, we're all just young. Everybody brahmachari, 6 months, 1 year, whatever it may be. And we're sitting, and of course our eyes are fixed on pure devotee of Krishna. We didn't understand everything, but we could understand. He's pure devotee of Krishna. Everything about him is just pure. You look at his eyes, and they were like no one else's. They sparkled. They were always wet. They wet with tears of love and compassion. I saw that. Sometimes devotees would say, I don't want Prabhupada to look at me. He sees all of my faults, all of my sins, all my past lives. I was with Prabhupada a long day. I said, no, that's not what he sees. He sees a devotee. And how can I engage this person in service? That's always what he saw. always saw a devotee. He saw everyone as a devotee. How can I engage him? This is Krishna consciousness. So we'd sit there, little children. We were little babies in Krishna consciousness, literally children. And one time, looks at us. He'd be chanting on his beads. We'd chant. No one would say, oh, Prabhupada, can you? No, you don't do anything. We just sat. You just knew. You don't, and he would say that, right? He's not you don't take guru as a fashion, huh? Some fashion. No, serious business, very serious business. And he looked at us and he said, what color is Krishna? And I'm thinking, see, I'm already thinking, Prabhupada he's funny. Because I'm thinking, everybody knows what color, I mean, this is the first thing you learn. He said, why is he asking what color is Krishna? And I'm thinking, I'm not going to raise my hand, because whatever I say, I'm not going to be right. I just knew it. Somehow or other, I knew it. Don't try to answer that question. I spent 2.5 years with him. Whenever he would ask questions, not me, I'm not answering that question. I'm not going to be the one that's wrong. Because you're always wrong. That's part of what Guru does. Corrects you, chastises you, knocks your pride. Because we're all proud. We're proud, whatever we are. Devotees, we're proud we're devotee. I'm proud I'm the manager. I'm proud I'm this. Everyone's proud. And the business of the Guru is take away your pride, somehow or other. So I'm thinking, so one devotee raised his hand. He was smart. He quoted Krishna book. He quoted 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. He says it's described in Krishna book, which Prabhupada dictated. It's described in the Krishna book, blackish like the monsoon rain cloud. Prabhupada looked and went, he's blue like the sky. He said, that's why the sky is blue, because it's reflecting Krishna's bodily effulgence. Imagine that. From that day, every time I see the sky, I think the same thing. Krishna. This is the business of the devotee. Make you see Krishna. Everyone, have you seen Krishna? It's not difficult. Prabhupada made it so it's not difficult to see Krishna. Not that you're going to see immediately threefold bending form. You have to learn how to see him in everything, everywhere. He said he's blue like the sky. It's reflecting Krishna's bodily effulgence. Huh? That's not what we learned growing up in our science class, you know. It's reflecting this, doing all these things. We learn all these things. So-called gravity. What gravity? Prabhupada would laugh these things. Huh? But for us, it's like learning. We had to unlearn so much that we were taught in the material world, about the material world. Another day, sat in Prabhupada, always sat very straight. His back was always straight. And he looking at us, all the little children. He loved us so much. Prabhupada enjoyed being with his young boys and girls. He really enjoyed our company. And he looked at us. He said, Govindam Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. We're proud to be servants of Krishna. That's the first time I heard. Because you always hear about the humble part. Humble, humble, humble. Devotees humble. And now Prabhupada's saying we're proud to be servants. He said that's our pride, that we're servants of Krishna. He said everyone is serving someone. Then of course you serve the wife, serve the husband, serve the dogs, serve your boss at work, whatever it is, everyone's serving. He said, but we're serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. You could see his pride, his happiness. And again he said, Govindam Hari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So in a few seconds he could just make you understand a little bit about Krishna. He could make you see Krishna. He could make you feel Krishna. My wife brought back, we have our little Giriraj and Govardhan, and I stayed home, but she went to the temples, and then she came back with the night, what's it called? Night Queen, jasmine. Some of you should know, if you're around at nighttime here, you'll smell this one fragrance, most wonderful fragrance, this night jasmine, Night Queen. And she picked a bunch, and we gave it to Govardhan before taking rest last night. When I was Prabhupada's servant, downstairs, he had his garden, and there was Night Queen in his garden. So one of my services was to pick that Night Queen. And 10 o'clock at night, everything was done. Prabhupada would go into the bedroom, and servant would go in and give him a massage. Dry, no oil. Daytime, oil. Nighttime, another massage. Mostly his legs and his lotus feet. So he would lie down, and I would put the jasmine on his pillow. And he would just, sometimes he would just lie there with his head to the side. And as I was massaging, he just, and the one I'm massaging his feet, and he had the jasmine at his nose, and he said, "This is Krishna. This is Krishna. This is Prabhupada. He gives us Krishna, shows us Krishna, always teaching." You could think most simple thing, but there was always a lesson. Going back to New Vrindavan. So a whole week Prabhupada was there. I didn't get to see him. And I was upset. Because I wanted to. Everybody else, they'd come in, "Oh, did you hear class today?" I'm in the kitchen all day, from 4 in the morning, 8 o'clock at night. In the evening, I was cooking the milk sweets for the next morning. Sweet rice, sandesh, burfi. So I didn't see him. And they would come, "Oh, Prabhupada did this, and Prabhupada said this." And I'd be jealous. So then the night before, 8 hours, 9 hours before Prabhupada left New Vrindavan, Kirtanananda Swami came into the kitchen, and I'm cooking. And he says, "Do you want to be Prabhupada's servant?" I said, "Yes. I've been living in New Vrindavan on the farm, milking cows, baling hay. Now I'm cooking in the kitchen. Wintertime, brutal, muddy, cold, snowy." So anyone would have said yes, but somehow or other, he asked me. I said, "Yes." He said, "All right, you'll leave with him tomorrow morning." I said, "Okay." He said one other thing. He said, "I told Prabhupada, you'll be the best servant he ever had, because you'll never leave him." Okay. So the next morning, hardly New Vrindavan, you were lucky if you had one dhoti. And, it was a farm. We wore jeans and boots because we were working all day. Kirtanananda's philosophy was, we're living Bhagavad Gita, not reading Bhagavad Gita. We had already reached the conclusion of, we didn't have to read. Work for Krishna. That was it. Work. And that's what we did. So the next morning, I went into Prabhupada's room with Kirtanananda. It was just a little room, one-story farmhouse cottage, low ceilings, and it was very dark. Prabhupada had his one lamp on the table where he did his dictating, where he did his translating work. We offered obeisances, and Kirtanananda said, "This is Srutakirti. He's going to be your servant." And Prabhupada just looked and went, that was it. And then Kirtananda said, he's a very good cook, but he doesn't know how to massage. Prabhupada said, anyone can massage. That was the first, not exactly the truth. Prabhupada was being kind to me. I found out later, you had to know what you were doing. Your hands had to be nice and soft, no calluses, no sweaty hands, and you had to use force. She's letting me know. Prabhupada once said, Tamal Krishna, he massages like a girl. No offense to ladies, but the ladies, you're not, He liked strong massage. So then we're just sitting there, and Prabhupada reached under he's sitting on the floor on a cushion, and he reached under his floor, and he grabbed his lota. I had never seen a lota. I heard about his lota. His lota actually became known all around the world. I'll tell you why. We have a lot of time over the next week. So he grabbed his lota. He stood up and he gave me his very first instruction. He said, follow me. That's the only instruction you ever need to know from your spiritual master. You follow him. Always following him. And if you stop following him, you're no longer a disciple. Disciple means what? Discipline. Our whole business is to follow. And Srila Prabhupada, no better person to follow than Srila Prabhupada. He can take us back to Godhead in this very lifetime. So he said, follow me. It was a very simple instruction. 30, 40 years later, I figured out it was a very profound instruction. You can take instructions, just like reading his books. You read it once. Every time you read, you'll see more and more. You realize more and more. So I realized his very first instruction was his final instruction too. Just follow him. And he would say later, you were with me. You know what to do. And I do, because I may do it or not do it. That's my misfortune if I don't. But I know what to do. I know what Prabhupada wanted. I know how he liked to chant. I know how he liked to dance. I know how he liked classes. All these things. He's told me, directly and indirectly. I've heard all of these things from Prabhupada. How to follow. This whole program here is to teach you how to follow Srila Prabhupada. That's why it's called Founder Acharya. He teaches by example. Acharya teaches by example. So consider what that means. He's shown us what to do every minute of his life while he was with us, and even before. Sometimes the grahastas would say, I'm doing this and I work, what should I do? I say, just look at what Prabhupada did. His whole life, pure devotee, his whole life. He raised a family, he had a business. All he ever thought about was how to serve his spiritual master's instruction. Made it his life and soul. He said, I accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. From the very first meeting, he said, I accepted him as my guru. And he says that, even about initiation. He says many different things at times, but he says initiation is the beginning. He said, but real initiation begins as soon as you start following your guru. As soon as you accept his instructions, already you've accepted as your guru. He said the initiation ceremony is a formality. So you make those vows. Radhanath Swami, the other night, it was a pre-wedding party. It wasn't the wedding party, it was a pre-wedding party. Here in India, you have parties for everything. Pre-wedding, wedding, after wedding, pre-birth, birth, after birth. eating, we're having ceremonies all the time, and Prabhupada endorsed them. He speaks about them at different times, the importance of doing these ceremonies. I lost my train of thought. So, Radhanath Swami, so his disciples, big family, what's his name? Srinathji. So Srinathji's son and daughter, their daughter getting married. So Srinathji became Prabhupada's disciple. His son became Prabhupada's disciple. And son's wife became Prabhupada's disciple. Radhanath Swami's disciple, I'm sorry, yes, they became Radhanath Swami's disciple. So he attended Radhanath Maharaj. He's very kind. He'll travels and goes, and someone asks him to do something, he does it. He's very kind. So they asked him to speak, and he spoke, and he was saying about vows. Just like we have initiation ceremony, you make a vow in the fire, in front of Lord Vishnu, before the deities, before the Guru, you make vows. He said, Radhanath Swami said, making vows are very easy. Anyone can make a vow. Okay? Like I said, I remember my mother, one year for Lent, she made a vow. I'm not using sugar in my coffee for Lent. That was her penance, her austerity. Everyone drank coffee. Every Italian drinks coffee. But she wasn't going to put sugar in it. So that was her austerity. Looking back I laugh when I think, of course, even after Lent, she stopped putting sugar in it because she started to enjoy it that way. So Radhanath Swami, anyone can make a vow, following and keeping the vow. He said, that's what's important. He said, we make these vows and these marriage vows. Anyway, he went on for about 15, 20 minutes. And later on, we were together and he started laughing. He said, I actually gave the marriage ceremony lecture because he was stressing the importance of the vows, even though it was just a little party, little get-together. The families got to meet, father's family, her family, his family. They all got to meet, get to know each other a little bit. But he's laughing, Radhanath Swami. He laughs. It's very interesting because Prabhupada had a laugh. And that's also what I saw there in Los Angeles. And when I say I appreciated Prabhupada's sense of humor, because in New Vrindavan, humor was not a priority. Being happily engaged wasn't a priority. Working was our priority. Working, austerity, simple prasadam, cold baths in the morning. I remember when we went to Bahulaban farm, they had just bought it. So that's the farm me and Yadavananda went to, my godbrother who I joined with. And in the house, there was no hot water because it was a very austere, simple farmhouse. But there was the milk shed, and that was a cinder block building. And in the milk shed, there was hot water because you had to sterilize the milk cans. So we would go into the milk shed and bathe so we could use the hot water until it was uncovered by Kirtanananda Swami. Then that also got no more hot water. In the wintertime, cold showers, that was our business. Austerity. New Vrindavan was meant for austerity. One of our only vegetables there was pokeweed. It was kind of like spinach. It was leafy. It was considered a leafy vegetable for us. Pokeweed, it was called. We would make chutney out of crab apples. Just because it has the word apple in it doesn't mean it was an apple, but it was a crab apple. It was very, very bitter and sour, but we would make crab apple chutney. We used what was ever there. That's what we did. So that was New Vrindavan. So always, and Kirtanananda, he was very austere and worked very hard, and he made all of us work very hard. I remember once in this little temple room we had, and the lights weren't working or something. So he told me to fix it. I was 19 years old. I had no idea about anything. And he said, well, he told me, because he had a little, what did he have? Polio? What was it? Polio. So he always had a cane. So he couldn't go up on the chair. We didn't have a ladder. It was up on the chair. And he said, well, just make sure you only touch one wire at a time. And that was the way he was going to prevent me from being electrocuted. And it worked. If you in the U.S., if you only touch one wire, you'll not get, at least it worked that way. In India, it wasn't like that. I tried using that in India once, in Krishna Balaram Mandir in Prabhupada's kitchen while it was under construction. And there was a loose wire, and I tried to move it and almost died. But then I realized, don't touch wires, not a smart thing. But when I was in Los Angeles with Prabhupada, and I'm reading Krishna book, and 2 days in a row, Prabhupada just started laughing and laughing when Krishna and Balaram were killing the demon. And Prabhupada started laughing. And he kept laughing. He didn't stop. He kept laughing. And his eyes start crying. Tears are coming out of his eyes, and he's laughing, and then his body is shaking and shaking and shaking, and then he started slapping his knee, and all of it was going on simultaneously, his chest, his body, and he's slapping his knee, and tears are coming, and then we all started laughing, not because of what I was reading, we were laughing because he was laughing, because it was just, he put everyone into ecstasy. And the next day he did the same thing. And then I thought, that's what I want. That's what we all want. That's why we're here. We want to be happy in Krishna consciousness. And I got to see that time, that's Krishna consciousness. Hearing about Krishna and enjoying it so much you can't even control your body. And that's what Srila Prabhupada was like. And I see that sometimes Radhanath Maharaj, when he laughs, he can get a very hearty laugh going, laugh and laugh and laugh in the same way. He's very sweet. Everything I like about Maharaj. Anyway, and that's what he did that night when he was saying, I gave the marriage lecture. And then he started laughing. Maharaj started laughing. He said, I guess it was a little early, but anyway, that's what he did. So we do that sometimes. You can speak, and Krishna consciousness is very serious business. But at the same time, there's joy there. It's not so serious that you're not happy. That's not Krishna consciousness, that we become cold. And it says that. That's also described in the Shastra. If one is following rules and regulations, but he's not developing his love of Krishna due to offenses, he becomes hard-hearted. We just want to follow, just like military, just do this, yes sir, no sir. No, that's not the way we are. Even though we, yes Prabhu, no Prabhu. There has to be that happiness, that joy there. And that joy I got to see with Srila Prabhupada. Even when he was making his trick questions. Another one was, this was 1975. Now I've been with him 2 years. I know Prabhupada. Little bit I knew Prabhupada. And he's walking with his cane, and he stopped and he said, so, devotee, he's simple or crooked? I knew the answer right away because I figured the answer is the exact opposite of what you're going to say. But if I would have said it, he would have said I was wrong. I don't say anything. I'm just holding the microphone. I'm just a recorder. I was so fortunate. I got to record his words so many times. But I'm thinking, all right, trick question. All of his questions were trick questions because he could say either way. He could say this way, that way. So finally one devotee, and big devotee, he was joined early on, and he said, and he was nice devotees, humble devotees. So of course, what did he say? He's simple, Prabhupada. I knew that was coming. No. Prabhupada said, no, he's crooked. Crooked? Devotees, how a devotee? Everything we learn is devotees simple, straightforward, the very opposite of crooked. And Prabhupada saying, no, he's crooked. He's saying, I'm crooked. That's what he's saying. He didn't say I'm crooked. But he said, just like me, I've tricked all of you. Surrendering to Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna. How is that? And I hear this all the time. As soon as you say anything about chanting, about kirtan, there's no hard and fast rules. Say yes, until you accept initiation. Then we got rules, pages and pages of rules and regulations. There's no hard and fast rules, doesn't apply to us anymore. You can't use that excuse, no hard and fast. No, there are hard and fast rules. I just read, the devotee gave a picture to us yesterday as we were driving past Mirror Road to get here. He had something for a devotee, and then he gave me a nice photo of Prabhupada. And there were a few inscriptions. And Prabhupada said, if you can't finish your 16 rounds, what did he say? You didn't read it? He said, don't sleep. Finish your 16 rounds. That's a hard, fast rule, isn't it? So hard and fast rules are there. So that's what Prabhupada said, I'm crooked. I brought you all in, very nice, come chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, and then finally put the hook in you. Grace will put that hook in you. She's already doing everything very nicely. So many nice devotees. And I see the expertise. I said that the other day with Radhanath Maharaj. Very expertly. How to know how to make adjustments. Well, actually, we'll stop here today. We can start off with that tomorrow. We have a few minutes, right? We can, if anyone has any questions or comments. You're going to find that if I'm going to speak, I'm going to be all over the place. I never have a sheet. I never have a program. I never have a process I just try to remember Srila Prabhupada and share them with you. So each day is going to be like this. You're going to hear some things from this area and some things from here, and we'll go back and forth. But going along with Maharaj, as he said, I'll talk the philosophy. He said, and you can talk about being with Prabhupada personally. So that's what we'll be doing. And I hope you're all here every day. I'll be happy to be here with you. But if we have time for one or two questions.
One realization. Sorry, I don't know how to ask the questions even.
Okay.
And I'm a very emotional person. But today you present Krishna in front of us. And the fragrance of the Harakani Queen night in front of her. Who put the smell in the Krishna?
Yes.
If I see the sky, I can see the
Krishna.
And
That's
the sun, moon, everything.
Krishna.
Krishna.
Yes. Yes.
Prabhupada,
He made it very easy.
yes,
So easy.
And I can see him, he's laughing, he's sick and change the world.
Yes.
And this is my realization. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So my
I understand the value of my human life.
very staunch devotee, and everyone knows I don't have to say one.
I don't have a word to describe. Really, he accepts us. That is I believe.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, thank you. You're in very good hands, Candramauli Swami. No, you? Anyone?
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
It was so interesting. I wanted to ask, you mentioned about being a fool in front of your guru. And if you could kindly share a little bit more about that, because guru well. So how do we balance in terms of doing the task
Yeah.
properly to please the guru versus also being humble and submissive?
Good.
And
Good question. It's funny because, I use that. Terminology very important. Like I say, Prabhupada, many times I'll say Prabhupada was childlike. Not childish, childlike. There was an innocence, a sweetness to be around him. Same thing. We should consider ourselves fools, but not be foolish. At the same time, we should be very expert. Whatever, we should develop the ability to be expertise in what we do. Humility can only come when we understand. The more we know about Krishna, the more we can actually become humble. Because devotee knows whatever ability I have, that's coming from Krishna. It's also gift through the spiritual master. Just like here, me speaking now, nothing I do. Prabhupada, I remember a few times, one time was in Mayapur, after he gave class and he was having breakfast, I brought him his breakfast, and he's sitting there eating his fruit, and he turned to me, he said, "Did you record today's class?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "Play it, I want to hear it. It was a really nice class." He wasn't saying it was he's saying Krishna gave a really nice class. Understanding whatever it's coming from Krishna. That's why I would say these are not my books. We don't take credit for anything, because whatever intelligence we have to do something, we understand it comes from Krishna. That's humility, and that's understanding I'm a fool. I can't do that. I can't sit up here and give a class. Who am I to give a class? Whenever I come before, I say, please put some words in my mouth. These devotees, they want to hear something about you, about Srila Prabhupada. Give me the ability. We always have to understand whatever good we can do comes to Guru and Krishna. So I'm a fool. That means I don't have it. And memory also comes. Just in the last few days, I've seen Krishna give me memory, give me intelligence for things I would forget, things we couldn't find. And he literally put things in my head. And I would argue, not like a conversation, but I argue with myself, there's no need to do that. That's not it. But it was it. And I keep getting this message in my head. And when you start to see that's Krishna, that's progress in Krishna consciousness, because it is Krishna. He is the source. And he can also make you forget. As we go along in each day, more of these things will come out. I see how Krishna took my intelligence away, right in front of Srila Prabhupada, right in front of him. Things that would be so easy to remember, I would think, but no memory was there. But it's so Prabhupada also could give instructions. We'll talk about that, chastisement someday. I got chastised by Prabhupada. And generally, when he would chastise me, it would be in the most public situation. Yeah, to knock your pride, because he could see that pride. And that's their whole business, because pride is the main obstacle to becoming Krishna conscious. Yeah. Does that explain it a little bit? So fools, we're all fools. We're all fools. That's why we're here in this world, because we're fools. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. So the plan is to not be foolish, to follow. As Prabhupada said, follow me. So that's my instruction to all of you. You follow him. You follow him through your guru. And if he's not following him, then he's also not guru. But I know he's following him, so he's guru. There's no question of bad guru. You're either a guru or you're nonsense. You're a rascal. That's what Prabhupada said. He said, It's my 80th Vyas Puja. You're all fools, he said. Have you learned nothing? That's how he would speak. And then immediately he said, that's okay, you be fools. Better you be fools, and I'll teach you. But that's what we do. I don't know anything. All I know is what he's told me. That means I'm a fool. I don't know anything, but I can repeat my Guru Maharaj in my words. That's our business, to repeat what we heard. He said that over and over. Just repeat what I've told you in your own words. That's the business of a disciple. And then you repeat, you follow, then you too become guru. By following, you too become guru. Okay, one last. We have, yes, go on.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful incidents that you shared with Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.
It was really absorbing. So, one realization before I ask my question. You mentioned that Prabhupada always had his eyes watering. And that was my very first observation. So, whenever I saw Srila Prabhupada's pictures, any pictures, very first thing I observed was his eyes.
Yes.
And they were always watering.
Yes.
And that really, really caught my attention.
Yes.
And you mentioned it today, and I was really overwhelmed
Yes.
from inside when you mentioned it. And
Like diamonds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always water, as if he is in ecstasy and remembering Radha and Krishna every time.
Yes.
I don't know, I'm not at that level, but I felt something like that. So my question was, you mentioned that Srila Prabhupada was really regulated. Regulated, very disciplined in his schedule. So as the progressing devotees, we also face these challenges. I always think my Guru Maharaj, he's struggling every time, but still he's managing everything. And I am in the house doing, I'm in the house, still I'm not able to manage. So it's like I do my daily routine, but things are, okay, I complete it, but it's like scattered. Sometimes if my rounds are pending, I do it in the evening. So this is not discipline, this is not regulation. But like Srila Prabhupada do everything on time, finishes everything.
Well, he was also, of course, in a different period. As a sannyasi, you're like you say, you're grahasta, you have family. Prabhupada said as grahasta also, he said, it's not difficult to complete 16 rounds. He said, he told me that, at grahasta. He said 4 rounds early in the morning, 4 rounds before breakfast, 4 rounds before lunch, 4 rounds before dinner. He said 16 rounds. He said, and if you don't chant those 4 rounds, you can't eat that meal. He said, that way you'll get all your rounds done. So he gave an ability, but it's expected. You're going to have so many things that happen in the course of the day. Some days not so difficult. Some days could be very difficult. But somehow or other, that's what he said. So it is to get it done amongst all the chaos. And sometimes maybe you're, as a mother, maybe even not get it done. Anyway, the prescription is there, the ideal is there, and we always work towards that ideal. That's the main thing. We should always work towards the ideal and pray to Krishna to help us and give us guidance and help us. And everything will be all right.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we will stop here. Any questions? I'll be back tomorrow. Is that okay? We'll continue then tomorrow, so everyone can have lunch prasadam, also a very important part of Krishna consciousness. That's the easy part, no hard and fast rules. You can eat whatever you like, as long as it's prasadam. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.